I hope you're all doing well. Today's subject, which is fears. We were all born as babies with only two fears, and that is the fear of being dropped and a fear of loud noises. So if we were all born with only two fears, what does that mean then? So that means every single fear that we have are learned fears through our experiences. So for example, with me, I am scared, petrified of spiders, but logically, especially in England, there are no poisonous spiders that I'm aware of. Maybe there is one, but I'm not aware of them. But most of the spiders that I've come across in my life are really harmless bush ones, house ones, and I know about, like, people say that spiders bite, but you know, they're not going to kill us, not like in some parts of the world. And maybe if you live in other parts of the world that you might have a reason to fear spiders. But for me, for example, I had no reason to fear spiders apart from, I'm just concluding here that the reason that I'm scared of spiders is because what you call an imprint. So an imprint is when something happens quite traumatic in your childhood that affects your attitude or your behavior afterwards permanently. So, and in my case, I'm scared of spiders, and I can recall Dad, if you're watching, you know, no disrespect to you though, but I remember quite vividly, I was in the garden, my dad grabbed one of those English spiders from the bush, and they're quite big, you know, they're about that size, and he grabbed the spider and went, you know, turn around, and I'm like, what? And he threw this spider at me. I can't even remember whether it was real or not, but the fact is that he scared me so much, because I cannot remember a time before that I was scared, because I grew up some of my life in Hong Kong and the Philippines, and I have memories when I was in the Philippines playing with spiders. There is like a game, and I remember not being afraid. I don't know if my dad was joking, but he threw a spider at me. So that in effect had an imprint of my fear around spiders. So now I have a fear of spiders, even though logically my brain knows, and I know, that the spiders here that I'll come across is not going to hurt me. But because I've had this experience, it's affected me for the rest of my life. The previous videos that I shared, the first one I talked about the brain loves the familiar, and because it goes back to our survival instincts. On the second live video, I talked about one of the rules of the mind is the main purpose for the brain is to keep us safe and away from danger. And the third rule of the mind was the brain listens to pictures that we send to ourselves and the words that we say to ourselves, regardless on whether or not it's true or not. And then today I talked about the fears. So the whole point of going through the rules of the mind is because I'm working towards sharing with you an amazing therapy which basically goes into the subconscious mind and unlocks these in-depth beliefs that are holding us back from everything you could possibly think of. And it does relate to what I do. So I will eventually share with you how all this is connected to our everyday eating habits. I thought I'd do a quick video because something happened on the plane which doesn't usually happen very often, but I thought it really related to a lot of the things I've been talking a lot about, which is about the mind and how the brain works. Like, the mind has such a key component. So anyway, we're on the plane and there was no warning whatsoever. Suddenly we hit some turbulence. and literally the plane must have dropped. I don't know how many meters in the sky, but you started hearing people screaming on the plane. But knowing what I know now and what I've learned about the brain, just to remind you, if you haven't seen any of my previous videos, we are born with only 2 fears, and that is the fear of loud noises and a fear of being dropped. And although technically, when we were like experiencing turbulence in the plane and we felt the feeling of being dropped, we weren't really being dropped. It just like jolted slightly, and it is a bit unnerving when you aren't expecting it. So I was looking around, I could see all these women, like literally a woman like the opposite row of me, like her daughter and her son was holding on to her. She was literally crying while her husband's next to me, because like we're in a 3-seater, was holding her hand. This is the first time my daughter has experienced turbulence. So instead of showing her that I was scared, and to be honest, I was actually really scared, it kind of like surprised me more than anything else to feel that falling feeling. And like I said, you know, that is one of the things that we're born to be afraid of, because it's part of the survival instinct. As a baby, you are afraid of falling because you don't want to be dropped. So instead of showing my fear to my daughter, the natural instincts for a child who's never experienced anything like it before, like experiencing something new, is to look to the other people to see how they react. And most of the time you look at your parents to see how they react. So instead of me like really expressing how terrified I felt, and you know, I'm not like, I don't have a fear of flying, but it really is unnerving. So instead of showing it, I went woo. So while everyone was screaming in the plane, I was going woohoo, and she started going woohoo, and then she was like saying, wow, this is so much fun. And I said, yes, it's just like in a fairground, you know, woo. So every time there was like a bit of turbulence, we would both be going woo. So anyway, the moral of the story is there's always 2 choices in how you want to react to situations in your life. So I could literally have showed my daughter how petrified I'd felt, and then imprinted in her very young brain that flying and turbulence is frightening. Or I could just show her it was fun and there was nothing to worry about, and statistically it's much safer to fly than any other form of transport. It's actually like more dangerous having a toaster at home than going on a flight. But with the mind, we're driven by emotion, not logical. So saying that to someone who's scared about statistics doesn't work, because it's too late. They're driven by emotion. And what I wanted to succeed with my daughter was not to connect flying with fear. And the way that I did that is just to turn it into a game. So anyway, it literally lasted for 2 minutes and that was it. And then she was just so happy. Thanks for joining.